In some parts of Northern Europe, people don't have to imagine what it's like to have 24 hours of sunshine because it's a reality in their area. And it also happens that there is darkness for 24 hours. During these days, the sun is not visible above the horizon. In the past, for agriculture-dependent Sweden, this meant that most of the work there was done in the summer. Sweden used to be a very poor country, but now it has a GDP per capita of $60,000, about ours 1.29 million, and is considered a high-income country by the World Bank. But natural light still plays an important role in the economy of northern Sweden, from tourism to energy, and from hoteling to the traditional lives of its native inhabitants. Scott Miller, an expert on Scandinavian history at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, told the BBC's Elizabeth Hudson that light is very important in Scandinavian and Swedish culture. It is related to its opposite, winter. If you're in northern Sweden, there's a time when there's no light in the winter, he says. In summer there is a lot of light, which is great. These days are most productive when everything is growing and your cattle can graze. Miller says that until 2 centuries ago, Swedish agriculturalists had to do most of their work during the daylight hours, otherwise they would not have enough resources to survive in the winter. Then kerosene lamps boomed in the mid-19th century, and then electric light bulbs just a few decades later, and then Sweden's economy changed. Thus, people started working and reading even in the dark, which increased the literacy rate. This modern economy developed very rapidly, and Sweden became one of the richest countries in the world. But the summer sun is still an important part of many sectors of the economy. Jakaterina Smirnova, an analyst at research firm Euromonitor, says that Sweden's hotel industry was growing steadily before the pandemic. In 2019, consumers in Sweden spent 137 billion Swedish krona, which is about $13 billion, on food services, including restaurants, cafes, and bars. The country's annual growth rate was more than 4% in the 10 years before the global pandemic of the coronavirus. Euromonitor estimates that Sweden will continue to grow at a rate of 4% for the next several years. Every hour of daylight is important for bars and restaurants in the summer, especially if your business depends on people enjoying the outdoors. Rami Awad, who runs a popular restaurant and bar in Stockholm, says, "From the beginning of October to the end of March, we have brutal winters and it's dark, so people like to stay indoors most of the time. In early April, people go out and enjoy the light and the sun. They say that people spend more money in the summer because they spend more time away from home." He says that he keeps the restaurant open 7 days a week. It makes a huge economic difference. Northern Sweden has a very strong summer tourism infrastructure. Located 200 kilometers north of the Arctic Circle in Lapland, Abisko is today a popular place to watch the midnight sun. It has been a favorite destination for nature lovers for more than a century. Mountain tourism and industrial development go hand in hand in Sweden, says Jessica Mulkowitz, a local tourist station official. Due to coal, the railway reached here in the late 18th century, and in the early 19th century, it became possible for nature seekers to visit Abisko. When the light returns, everything looks so beautiful. The trees and the environment become green, and you feel that life has returned. "We are on a 7-week trip to the Baltic region," said American tourist Laura Arendt, who was staying at a luxury resort. "We started in Denmark and went to Poland. We wanted to go to the Arctic Circle because we've never been that far north. We also wanted to experience the midnight sun because obviously it can't be seen in the US. It's weird," she says. "We hiked last night to see the midnight sun, and at 12:30 we reached the top of the mountain. It was daylight and it looks so strange. It is very unusual that you look at the weather report at 2 o'clock in the morning and it says that the sun is out." Arendt is one of several wealthy tourists who haven't taken a trip in 2 years, so they're willing to spend a little more on vacation. But light doesn't just have an impact on the tourism economy in northern Sweden. It's also important for some very traditional economic activities, especially when it comes to livestock. Niels Natty, a reindeer herder in a local village, says that the midnight sun also gives the animals energy and their pastures turn green again. Pointing to one of his 12 horns, he says, "His horns are growing by a centimeter every day. When it's hot here, there's very little snow and no bugs. At night, they have to come down to the valley for food." In their village, 70 families raise about 20,000 reindeer and bring them back to their enclosures together. It's just like daylight, and we can use that light to work and even bring the 12 lions back into the enclosures. They say that because our culture, our way of life comes first to us. We have learned to get everything from nature to survive, and today our main income comes from selling meat. From ancient traditions to modern technology, light is driving this economy into the future. Sweden plans to get all of its energy from renewable sources by 2040. And while hydro and wind will make up the largest share, solar energy is also very important. This year, about 2 gigawatts of electricity can be obtained from the sun, which is equal to 2 nuclear reactors. This amount is 2,000% more than the electricity generated in 2015. One business that is booming is snow hotels. They have 2 types of hotels. One is permanent, and the other is built from scratch every winter. Large amounts of snow are stored throughout the year to ensure a supply of snow for the annual construction work, and the midnight sun is an important part of this entire phase. When the river freezes, the ice is a meter deep, says Sarah Holmquist, manager of the ice hotel. We have a tractor with a saw that cuts 2-ton blocks of ice. Then another tractor picks them up and takes them to a cold warehouse. The internal temperature of this warehouse is kept at -5 degrees Celsius, and this electricity is also obtained from the sun. We have the sun shining continuously for the next 50 days, which generates enough electricity to keep the warehouse cool.